Are you surprised that the home prices went upwards?
Well, quite frankly, you've got to look at the data a bit more carefully than that. The market definitely is slowing down, no question about that at all. Firstly, this data only considers primary markets, so new flat sales. And bear in mind, they're up roughly 2% year on year. 6 months ago, they're up 10% year on year. So it's definitely slowing down. If you look at the total market, that's primary and secondary sales, in 44 out of 100 cities last month, prices were down, not up. Okay. So definitely we're seeing a slowdown in prices and a massive slowdown in transactions volumes.
That's right, the transaction volumes. And so we're saying you're still seeing these price increases because the developers themselves are not going to capitulate and bringing prices down just yet.
They're not yet, that's for sure. There's still definitely significant demand there, but certainly the government's measures to restrict credit and to impose taxes and restrictions of all kinds definitely are working. The volumes of transactions in August were running at about half the level of the previous 5 months and 1/5 of the level that we saw in 2009. So
wow.
Definitely these measures are working. I would expect by year end we'll be in negative territory in terms of price appreciation year on year.
Well, we just heard from Credit Suisse's head of China property research, and he says until you actually see these new home prices coming down, the Chinese government is not going to let up on its tapering methods, they say.
I suspect that's probably right, but at the same time we are going into probably a global slowdown in the global economy. And I suspect China will wish to perhaps stimulate its own economy at some point during that period. So I expect that we'll see an easing up of these restrictions.
Oh, really?
Perhaps
despite
before,
the fact that these prices still head upwards.
Before year end. Clearly the government doesn't want to see a property market crash.
No.
Some 50 to 60% of many municipal budgets come from land sales and property taxes of one kind or another. So there's clearly a pressure there to keep the market stable, certainly not to see a crash, but certainly they don't want to see it going up at 10% per annum either.
Yeah, probably not.
The aim, I think, is stability rather than a 30 or 40% downturn.
Okay, now where do you think we might see the most significant price declines? Since you said we're heading into negative territory, are we going to see them in the first-tier cities like Beijing, Shanghai, Tianjin, maybe?
I think that's where you're going to see it potentially, because that is where the biggest overhang of supply is coming on. We saw in the first 2 months of this year, the construction starts in 2 months were equivalent to about 80% of the total construction starts last year. So definitely there is a big supply surge happening at a time when demand is shrinking. So I think we are going to see price surge.
Okay, and I can't let you go without selfishly asking about Hong Kong home prices. You know, we've seen transaction volumes come down as well.
Absolutely.
Prices haven't followed as rapidly, shall we say.
I think in the secondary market we have seen a little bit of a decline. If you look through the statistics of 50 large housing estates in Hong Kong last month, you were seeing about 1/3 of them had price declines rather than price increases.
Yeah, that's in the secondary market,
that's
right?
In the secondary market,
home
yes.
resales.
Absolutely.
Okay, so how much do you think, when do you think we'll see these new homes come down in price?
I think we could see probably a 5 to 10% decline in prices over the course of the back end of this year.
Back end of this year?
Absolutely. Certainly the transactions volumes are coming off.
Right.
Credit is tightening. Interest rates are going up a little. So I think there is likely to be a little bit of a softening here, but don't expect a crash.
Not a huge
Certainly
one.
not.
Okay, so 5 to 10% price declines for new home prices. What about for secondary homes?
Well, we're already seeing a little bit of a decline in some estates, particularly in the sort of the new territories, in the new towns. But on Hong Kong Island, much less so.
Okay.
So I think it's really the new territories where we're likely to see a bit of a decline first.
So still 5 to 10% even for Central?
I think that's possible, but I don't. 5 or 10% is a rounding error in Hong Kong.
Yeah, that's right. Depends on who you're negotiating with as well.
Exactly. But certainly sellers are a little bit more friendly at the moment in terms of willingness to negotiate prices, that's for sure.